Hi everybody, welcome to our final lecture from the Fullan task. It's kind of crazy that I'm saying this, but this is the last thing that we're going to go through related to the Fullan text in our course. Like I said, my main goal from this textbook was to get you thinking, get you ideas that are related to school improvement and school reform, and truthfully to help you construct and really craft your dissertation, what it looks like, and in what it's going to be and what it's supposed to be. So here are the big ideas for the last chapter. And once again, remember, we're looking at this from a systems perspective. We've looked at the classroom level, the building level, the district level, the state level, the federal level. But really, we're looking at how does the U.S. compete against international benchmarks? What does that look like? How has England done so well in achieving international benchmarks? And how we're struggling to close the gap between what the American dream looks like and what American reality is. So Fullan truly believes that reform in the United States needs work, and we're at a critical point. I don't think there's a person in this class that can disagree with that statement. I think you all believe it, and we know that we have a results-driven approach, evidence-based learning, and social justice. Those are really where it's coming from right now in our reform. It doesn't have to be, just one of them. It can be all of them, but in many cases, it's really isolated in one or the other, and that's where our educational literature is, and that's where our current research is. According to Fullan, we believe that in 1955 was when the American high school peaked for white kids, and that's his exact words. College was affordable. Most of the people that wanted to go to school could, and if you were between the age of 55 and 64, it was the most accessible that it's ever been. And since 1955, it's gotten much, much, much less accessible than it is now. The idea of the American dream was sort of masked by the civil rights movement, where there was very grotesque educational inequality in the Deep South. And if you've paid attention to the other lectures that I've presented in this class, you know there's inequality in the South in terms of educational quality and even educational compliance. We believed that when the civil rights were achieved, that equal access to school would follow, but we're still not there, and we're still working on ways that we can get there. The worry in the United States that Fullan has, and remember, and I keep saying this, but Fullan is Canadian, and I think that's good because it gives a different perspective on what this looks like. It's this biggest fear that things don't get done in education. We're one of the slower countries compared to other countries in making change. And I think we all know this because change starts and it goes through systems, and once it's rolled out, it's expected that we jump in. We're constantly hurry up and waiting in this country. And that can be a problem when we're looking at ways to do and really influence large-scale change in schools. If you look at No Child Left Behind, it's important to know that progress is being made and has been made. The fact that the word no on No Child Left Behind exists, that's kind of my issue with it and my problem with it, but progress is being made and has been made to improve schools, to improve systems, and No Child Left Behind has been a great indicator of that. If you address it correctly and start with preschool and build upward, change really does work, but as we know from the discussion we've had on Common Core throughout this class, that isn't how systems go and that isn't how systems improve. The rollout's expected to be constant, and it's supposed to happen across all levels, preschool to 12 at one time, where if you would have done it slowly, it probably would have been a better rollout. When you're looking at education reform, you have to know that No Child Left Behind is a problem, and it has to be reformed. You have to understand, though, that growth models are a good thing, but if you have all this data and you don't know how to interpret it, then what's the point of having data? So if we have data, it's there, and we're not interpreting it correctly, then we're really not using it for what it's supposed to be used for. So districts have to be able to act rapidly in response to data where necessary. If they can interpret it and use it appropriately, it's strongly suggested that they do. But the entire reform process is just as much about means as it is ends. there needs to be a highly effective teacher in every classroom and a highly effective principal in every school, and I think that's more important than highly qualified. If you can have somebody who's effective but doesn't have the qualifications necessary when they come in and they can influence change in schools, that's better than somebody that has specific qualifications. That's why effectiveness is 1,000,000 times more important than highly qualified. So the government has to work with schools. They have to find a way to promote how schools do. They have to have a sense of urgency in their presentation, and they have to find ways that can really work in the school system. And that's a big idea. The entire system has to be improved upon. There has to be access to business, there has to be access to civil rights, and there has to be social justice. And they should not be isolated, and they have to work together. And this is the way you build schools and the way you build communities. So this is the last chapter in the course. I want you to focus on the final paper, the final presentation. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. But this is it. This is kind of where we end for the course. So I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you found this to be a beneficial course. Thank you.